Your brother and Emma need the space more than you do, Alice. You're barely here anyway, my mom said, casually packing my childhood belongings into cardboard boxes. I stood in the doorway of what used to be my room, watching 18 years of memories being erased to make way for my brother's new wife. I'm barely here because I'm working 2 jobs to put myself through medical school, I said, my voice tight with frustration. That doesn't mean you can just give away my room without asking. My father walked past, carrying my old desk. Don't be dramatic, Alice. Emma's pregnant. They need a proper nursery, and your old room has the best natural light. I was 24, exhausted from a 12-hour shift at the hospital, and now facing the reality that my parents had given away my personal space without even a phone call to warn me. My brother Mark and his new wife Emma had apparently decided they needed more space in my parents' house, where they'd been living rent-free for the past year. Where are my things supposed to go? I asked, watching my mom toss my medical textbooks into a box without any care for organization. The basement has plenty of space, she replied, not even looking up. Or you could take them to your apartment. It's time you fully moved out anyway. My tiny studio apartment, which I could barely afford on my residence salary, was already cramped with essential furniture and current textbooks. The thought of cramming 18 years of my life into that space made my head spin. The basement floods every spring, I reminded her. My books, my photos, my... Alice, my father cut in, his tone carrying that familiar note of dismissal. You're being selfish. Your brother has a family to think about now. Emma needs to feel welcome here. Welcome, at the expense of making me feel unwelcome in my own childhood home. I watched as Emma appeared in the hallway, her hand resting on her barely visible baby bump. She had that look on her face, the one that always reminded me of a cat that got the cream. Oh, Alice, I didn't know you'd be here today. We're so excited about the nursery plans. I'm thinking of painting the walls mint green. My walls. The ones I painted sky blue myself when I was 16 after getting straight A's and convincing my parents to let me redecorate. Hours of work, carefully taping borders, meticulously cutting in around the edges. All about to be covered up by mint green. You know what? Keep it, I said, turning away. Keep all of it. I'll get my essentials, but the rest can stay here. I'm sure you can find some use for it. Alice, don't be like that, my mom called after me. But I was already heading down the stairs. I grabbed my photo albums, my grandmother's quilt, and a few treasured books. Everything else, the furniture I'd saved up for with summer jobs, the collection of science awards gathering dust on my shelves, the corkboard filled with ticket stubs and memories I left behind. As I loaded the few boxes into my beat-up Honda, Mark came out to the driveway. Hey sis, he said, hands in his pockets. You know it's not personal, right? Emma just really wants to make the house feel like home. I slammed my trunk shut. It was home, Mark. My home. But I guess that doesn't matter anymore. Come on, you're never even here. You're always at the hospital or studying. What difference does it make? I looked at my older brother, the golden child who dropped out of college, worked odd jobs, and somehow still managed to be my parents' pride and joy. Now he had a pregnant wife, and suddenly my space, my history, my place in the family home was expendable. You're right, I said finally. What difference does it make? Good luck with the nursery. That night, in my small apartment, I sorted through the boxes I'd salvaged. Photos of school achievements my parents had forgotten about, academic awards they barely acknowledged, memories of working hard while Mark got by on charm and excuses. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Found some old papers in the desk drawer. Oak to throw them out, making room for baby stuff. I didn't reply. Those old papers were probably my research notes, carefully organized and saved for reference. But it didn't matter now. None of it did. I made a decision that night, surrounded by the fragments of my childhood. I would focus on my career, on building my own life, on creating spaces that were truly mine. My parents had made their choice, prioritizing Mark and Emma's comfort over my feelings, my history, my connection to my childhood home. Little did they know, this decision would come back to haunt them in ways they never expected. Because while they were busy making room for Emma's mint green nursery, I was laying the groundwork for a future that would force them to face the consequences of their choices. I picked up my phone and made a call to my financial advisor. Remember that investment opportunity you mentioned? I'm in. Use everything I've saved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead, and I was just getting started. 5 years passed quickly. I completed my residency, became a successful pediatric surgeon, and invested wisely in real estate. My tiny studio apartment was replaced by a stunning penthouse overlooking the city. The scared, hurt girl who'd watched her belongings being packed away had transformed into a woman who'd built her own empire. I rarely visited my parents' house. The few times I did, Emma had completely transformed my old room into a shrine to her perfect motherhood, with professional photos of her and my brother's kids covering my old sky blue walls. My medical school acceptance letter, which had left pinned to the corkboard, had long since disappeared. Then came the call that changed everything. "Alice, honey," my mom's voice wavered on the phone. "We need to talk to you about something important." I was in my home office, reviewing patient files when they arrived. My parents looked older, worn down. My father, once proud and dismissive, couldn't quite meet my eyes. "The bank is foreclosing on the house," he finally said, staring into his untouched coffee. "Mark's business venture. It didn't work out." I raised an eyebrow. "The food truck enterprise?" "He invested everything," my mom jumped in. "Our savings, our retirement fund. Emma's parents helped too, but he lost it all." I finished for her. The irony wasn't lost on me. My reliable, sensible career choice had once been deemed less impressive than Mark's entrepreneurial spirit. "We need a place to stay," my father said quietly, "just until we figure things out. Mark and Emma are moving in with her parents, but they don't have room for us." I looked around my penthouse with its 3 spare bedrooms and state-of-the-art everything. The home I built while they were busy enabling Mark's latest schemes. "What about my old room?" I asked, unable to resist. "The one with the best natural light." My mother flinched. "Emma's using it as a homeschool space for the kids now. We couldn't possibly." "Of course not," I said smoothly. "We wouldn't want to disrupt their lives, would we?" The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken understanding. They remembered. They remembered every dismissal, every time they'd chosen Mark's comfort over my stability. "Alice," my father began, "we know we haven't always been fair to you." "Fair?" I laughed softly. "You packed up my life without warning. You dismissed every achievement because it didn't fit your idea of success. And now you're here, not because you've realized your mistakes, but because you need something from me." "We were wrong," my mother whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "We see that now. The way you've built your life, how hard you've worked. While Mark lived rent-free in your house, draining your savings with one failed venture after another," I added. My father's face reddened. We always thought he just needed one good break, one opportunity to prove himself. And I didn't. Every accomplishment, every milestone, they all took a backseat to Mark's latest idea." I stood up, walking to my floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights twinkled below, a testament to every late night, every extra shift, every careful investment that had brought me here. "You know what the funny thing is?" I turned back to face them. "That room you gave away, it taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Nothing is guaranteed. Not family support, not childhood spaces, not even memories." My mother was openly crying now. My father looked like he aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. "Please, Alice," he said. "We have nowhere else to go." I thought about that day 5 years ago, packing my treasured possessions into my old Honda, while Emma planned her mint green nursery. I thought about every holiday where my work schedule was criticized while Mark's unemployment was defended, every achievement that was minimized while his failures were cushioned. "I'll have my real estate agent contact you," I said finally. "I'm a small condo on the east side of the city. It's not fancy, but it's clean and well-maintained. You can stay there, paying market rent, until you get back on your feet." "Rent?" My mother's voice quavered. "But we're family." "Yes," I agreed. "We are. And family should respect boundaries, support achievements, and think twice before throwing away someone's belongings. Consider this a lesson in respect, one that's 5 years overdue." They left shortly after, clutching the real estate agent's card like a lifeline. As I closed the door behind them, I felt no satisfaction, no vindictive pleasure, just a quiet certainty that I'd finally stood my ground. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Heard you're helping the parents. Any chance you could look at another investment opportunity for Mark? He has this great idea." I blocked her number without replying. Some lessons, it seemed, still needed to be learned. 6 months later, I stood in front of my old house. The foreclosure was final, and the property was up for auction. Through my real estate connections, I've learned the asking price was well below market value. The bank wanted a quick sale. My parents had settled into the condo I provided, finally learning to live within their means. They paid their rent on time, and slowly our relationship began to shift. Without Mark and Emma's constant presence, they started seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time in years. I made my decision standing there on the familiar driveway. "I'll take it," I told my agent that afternoon. "Make the offer." 2 weeks later, I had the keys to my childhood home. The mint green nursery walls, the homeschool corner, all the changes Emma had made to erase my existence, they would all be gone soon. I hired contractors immediately. The house needed work, not just cosmetic changes, but structural repairs that had been ignored during Mark and Emma's rent-free residence. As I walked through each room with the renovation team, I found pieces of my past that had been carelessly stuffed into corners: old science fair ribbons, photographs, even my medical school acceptance letter, crumpled at the bottom of a box in the basement. One Sunday morning, as I supervised the renovations, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Emma stepped out, her face a mask of indignation. "You bought our house," she demanded, marching up to me. "How could you? We were planning to figure something out, maybe get a loan." "This was never your house, Emma," I replied calmly. "You were guests here, even if you never acted like it." "But the children's memories, they're home." "Like my memories?" I cut her off. "The ones you packed away and destroyed without a second thought. Funny how memories matter when they're yours." She took a step back, finally seeing me not as Mark's quiet sister who could be pushed aside, but as someone who had taken control of her own story. "What are you going to do with it?" she asked, her voice smaller now. I smiled. "I'm turning it into a transition home for medical students and residents who need affordable housing during their training. People who work hard, who sacrifice, who deserve a place that respects their journey." Emma's face fell. She probably expected me to offer them another chance, another handout. Instead, I was creating something meaningful, turning a space that had been taken from me into a haven for others like me. "Mark could manage it for you," she suggested quickly. "He needs a new project, and—" "No," I said firmly, "Mark needs to learn the same lesson you all did. Success isn't about getting chances handed to you. It's about earning them." After Emma left, I called my parents. To my surprise, they answered on the first ring. "We heard you bought the house," my mother said quietly. "Yes," I replied, waiting for the guilt trip, the emotional manipulation they perfected over the years. Instead, my father spoke. "We're proud of you, Alice, not just for this, but for everything. We should have said it years ago." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you, Dad." "Your brother," my mother hesitated. "He's struggling to understand why you won't help him anymore." "I am helping him," I said, "by not helping him. Sometimes that's the greatest gift you can give someone." 3 months later, I stood in the finished transition home. The mint green walls were gone, replaced by calming blues and warm whites. The rooms were furnished simply but comfortably, each one dedicated to housing a medical student or resident in need. My old room, with its perfect natural light, became a study room, filled with medical textbooks and a large table for group studying. On one wall, I hung my framed medical school acceptance letter, alongside my current surgical credentials. My parents came to the opening ceremony. They changed over the past months, growing more independent, more aware of their past mistakes. They still loved Mark, still worried about him, but they'd stopped enabling his poor choices. "This is beautiful, Alice," my mother said, touching my arm gently. "You've created something meaningful out of our mistakes." Out of my pain, I corrected her softly, but also out of my strength. The first residents moved in the following week. Young medical students, their eyes bright with determination, their futures full of possibility. In them, I saw echoes of myself: the dedicated student, the hard worker, the dreamer who refused to give up. Emma sent one last text before I blocked her number permanently. "You think you're better than us, turning our home into your charity project." I didn't bother responding. She still didn't understand. This wasn't about being better than them. It was about being better than the person they tried to make me become. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about creating something beautiful from something painful. It's about turning wounds into wisdom and hurt into hope. And as I watched the young residents make this space their temporary home, I knew I'd done exactly that.